People have always told me things. As a documentary filmmaker for the past 16 years, I've been awed and humbled. I frame the interviews I do as deep, revelatory conversations. I've witnessed powerful CEOs let tears wash over them, the dying find peace, and audiences surrender to the power of a story that leaves them forever changed. What these experiences have taught me is how listening can be a revolutionary act, how it can change you and the world itself. I call this revolutionary listening. What do I mean by revolutionary? I define revolutionary as any act that completely transforms you or the world around you, that creates a full paradigm shift on a personal, interpersonal, and collective level. Revolutionary listening doesn't mean you have to agree with what you're hearing, but you do have to be willing to receive something unexpected. Unity is not agreement. In order to practice revolutionary listening, you have to be connected to your body and your heart. And the fastest way to connect to your body and heart is through your breath. So if you will, right now, humor me, and if it's safe to do so, place your feet flat on the floor, put your hands on your heart, and take a deep breath in through your nose, and let it out through your mouth. Notice how you feel. Notice how in just one breath, you are more connected to your body and heart. If you take the time to do 3 breaths in this way, you will be in the state of receptivity necessary to practice revolutionary listening. In the few minutes we have together, I'm going to ask you to be all in as you listen to me, to open yourself completely to my words. In doing so, if you pay attention, notice, and allow yourself to be fully present, you will experience what I mean when I say revolutionary listening. My closest friends and I regularly practice this. Our conversations lead to deep personal transformation. One of my newer friends is a great example of this. Superficially, our backgrounds and identities make it almost impossible for us to have ever met in segregated Chicagoland. I'm a non-practicing Jew. She's in divinity school. I'm white. She's black. I'm married. She's divorced. We met at Al's Deli in Evanston. She was in line wearing my favorite color, purple, and I overheard her talking to her friends about exploring vegetarianism, and as a lifelong vegetarian, I immediately jumped in and offered my favorite menu items. She sat down with me, and we've been in deep, transformative connection ever since. When she listens to me, I feel the way that my words and energy transform her, and vice versa. We've come to recognize all that we share, despite the appearance of difference. And we've come to see how our differences force us to say more, to move in closer, to be curious, observant, vulnerable. Revolutionary listening leads to radical empathy and radical love, both precious commodities in our highly polarized and divided world. Hopefully you already know how good it feels to be listened to by a really good listener, someone who leans into you, not just as performance, but in true wholehearted desire to see, hear, and understand you. Being this kind of listener is one of the greatest highs I've ever known. I leave most of my interviews feeling buzzy and more alive. I've seen the joy, the release, the letting go of painful memories. Let me tell you about Frances. She was in her 80s when I interviewed her, and she'd had a traumatic childhood experience that she'd never talked about. She had come home from school and found her mother dead on the kitchen floor. As I listened to her, I sensed that she knew she was talking not just to me, but to her entire family and to people who hadn't even been born yet. As she spoke, I watched her body relax, her energy lighten up, and a smile as she remembered the mother she had loved so much. This experience changed me forever. I realized that just by listening, I was having a huge impact. She was healing, and so was I. It was revolutionary. So what if you shifted your view and listening became an act of service, of unparalleled generosity? What if this simple, daily biological function became a sacred practice in your life? What might that reveal? How might that change you? Being heard is so close to being loved that for the average person, they are almost indistinguishable. Take a moment right now and notice how you are listening to my words. Are you waiting for me to get to the good part? Are you hoping I'll shut up? Are you waiting to tell me the story of the time the exact same thing happened to you? If any of this is happening for you, don't worry. I get it. It's how most of us, myself included, typically listen on a daily basis. I meditate every morning, have more soul care practices than I can count, and yet sometimes I still have to ask my daughter or husband to repeat what they just said for the last 2 to 3 minutes when I was totally zoned out and didn't catch any of it. Can you think back to a time when you listened in such a way that when you left the conversation, theater piece, or film, you were changed forever? Revolutionary listening means that you intend or expect to be transformed by the experience. Being present is your sole focus. Listening becomes both a gift and an act of revelation for you, the listener. When I host screenings of my films, I set the stage for this sort of revolutionary listening. I invite the audience into what I like to call brave space, the opportunity to open themselves up to the possibility of being changed forever by watching my films and participating in the conversations I facilitate. At one of these screenings a few years ago at a Chicago library, a woman stood up to say that while she had been dragged super reluctantly to the event, she was leaving forever changed. She had been at one of the lowest points in her life, and after watching my film and listening to the conscious conversation that followed, she was done being a victim. To me, that points to the power of revolutionary listening. Listening transformed her very being. So you might be asking yourself, how can I practice this? How can I start the listening revolution in my community and circles? Start with yourself. Start by taking those 3 conscious breaths whenever you can. In your car at a stoplight, when you first wake up in the morning, or maybe in the bathroom. If you want to show up for people that you love in a way that changes you both and opens you to deeper connection, start by taking those conscious breaths and put away your phones. Connect soul to soul rather than roll to roll. Allow yourself to connect from the deepest place within you. Revolutionary listening involves curiosity, empathy, breath, and a willingness to connect with what we all share, the human condition. If you're still with me, you've been doing it this whole time. You will know if you are practicing revolutionary listening because you will feel different even though you haven't spoken a word. Notice how you feel. The position of your body as you listen. The way your breath moves in and out. Listen as meditation. When I interview someone, my number one job is to be a non-judgmental, unbiased listener. I leave all of my interviews changed, grounded, renewed, and a little bit wiser, I hope. I enter the experience not as a seasoned professional, but as a curious seeker, a student of life. If every human being is their own universe, then revolutionary listening is the chance to be an adventurer into new worlds. Won't you explore these new worlds, this new way of listening, to be the change, to be transformed, to build a more loving world together? Thank you.